What's up, duelists? Now, the last two big events, Deck Devastators and RBET 3 Season 2, were both won by variations of a Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon deck. This deck has a lot of different ways you could play it. This is a way that I frequently play it, but there's a million different variations of this, with Quick Draw, with whatever. You can play it a bunch of different ways, Norlaris even, and it's probably still a good deck, because at the end of the day, you still have Future Fusion, and you still have Red Eyes Darkness Metal, and these two cards are insanely power crept in comparison to the other stuff legal in Edison format. Before I start talking about the deck, I do just want to remind you guys that if you didn't make the signups for Nats, or even if you did and you want to experience some more high-level big Edison tournaments, I've got two coming up. Moreno Valley, RBET on August 19th. The prizes are insane. First place gets a Shonen Jump prize card, Dark End. There's a lot of other insane prizes. 240 player capacity tournament. And then, of course, RBET Orlando, October 7th, a little bit further down the road. Also, first place gets a Shonen Jump Dark End Dragon as well. So these are the two upcoming events. If you guys want to enter them, you can either scan the QR code here on the screen, or you can go to the description below. There should be links. Yes, there are links below in the description. Okay, back to the deck. This is a deck that I've worked on a lot. I've played it in a lot of events. This is the list that I like to play the most. There's a bunch of different ways you could play this. You don't have to play these exact cards, but the cards you pretty much do have to play are Future Fusion, Red Eyes, and like Wyvern and Drago. And Drago is like the hidden best card of this deck. This guy just beats everything. If you draw him, your win percentages against most of the meta decks go significantly higher, and then if you don't draw him, basically. Sideboard, we've got Double Prohibition for Hero Beat. That is the worst matchup. It is the scariest matchup for this deck, and it's also a very popular matchup right now. If you're going to take this deck to a tournament, you kind of got to pray that Hero Beat isn't there, or you got to build a variation kind of like Fitz is, or kind of like Ghost Riders from those tournaments that does well against Hero Beat. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some replays. This is my first replay with this deck versus Lost 16. I lose a Rock, Paper, Scissors. He starts off with Shura, set of back row, so immediately I know I'm playing against Blackwings. In my opening hand, I've got some pretty rough ones versus Blackwings. Goldsark's not very good, and neither is Brain Control. Brain Control is only good when you're going for the game shot, otherwise it's not the best. And Goldsark's pretty bad because it takes 2 turns, and this deck is notorious for rushing you down. So I kind of got to get a little bit lucky in order to win this. I have to kind of pray his back rows and Icarus attack. I go ahead and summon Wyvern, and I try to crash. He lets this go through, which is really good. This is a good position for me. It's better than if I summoned Drago and attacked, because it slows the game state down. If he has a bunch of Sirokkos or Vayus in his hand, he kind of gets accidental zoom. Oh my god. Zoom back out. What the fuck, man? Okay, there we go. Let's say I summon Drago, for example, and I attack over his Shura. Then he can summon Sirocco, run back over my Drago, and have a Sirocco in play, which is immediately threatening to me. I just have to hope his hand is like a bunch of Sirokkos, and then the Drago can come down at a more opportune time. Here I double Goldsark, I find Future Fusion, and I find Heavy Storm. This is probably going to be too slow. I probably should have searched for Red Eyes, but I figured that the best way for me to win this is to actually rattle off a bunch of removal spells, keep the monsters off my back, and then go to a top deck war in which we have Future Fusion. That's my game plan. So you'll see in this deck, I have 3D Prison, 3 DD Warrior Lady, and Rhoda. So that's 7 generic banishes, and then 2 bottomless, so it's 9 generic banishes. And then on top of that, we have Mirror Force and Torrential. So we have 11 removal spells. Psalms, the 12th removal spell, and the Book of Moons are 13 and 14. So we have a lot of removal spells, and the Mass Dragon itself is a removal spell because it can find Exploder Dragon. So we got like 15 removal spells. I'm just going to try to spot removal, stay alive, and then hopefully make it to the late game where we both have no cards, but I have 3 Wyverns in grave, and I can outgrind him. I pass the turn. He summons Bora, and he attacks me for 17. This is good, but it's not good enough because it's just too slow. The pressure is not there. And I know he doesn't have Kalut unless he just drew it for a turn. So I can go ahead and safely summon my Drago and attack his Bora the Spear and just run it over. Now I'm pretty confident summoning the Drago because if he has a Blizzard, he can't special summon something back with it. And if he has a Sirocco and he runs it over, I can at least maybe, you know, Call of the Haunted back my monster if I need to. Either my Wyvern or my... Oh my god, why am I doing this so much today? Bro, just zoom back out. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I reveal Mass Dragon. I don't want to set Call of the Haunted because I don't want to play too much into Icarus attack here. I don't want him to be able to summon another Bora and then Icarus me. That'd be really annoying. He summons that Sirocco. We kind of did know he had it, but he can't like summon Sirocco, then special Bora and keep going from there. This turn, we are able to grab our Heavy Storm and our Future Fusion. So I'm like, okay, now we actually have a legit shot. He does hit us with Trap Dust Shoot, but thankfully we drew Rhoda and not DD Warrior Lady. he's going to be able to take Mass Dragon and shuffle that guy away. So I need to stick with my game plan, which is Future Fusion. After I have basically reduced his cards as much as possible. I go for the Heavy Storm now because I just need this to resolve. He reveals a main deck Dust Tornado. Dust Tornado is pretty interesting. A lot of Blackwing players are main decking it nowadays, one or two of them, just to, guarantee their normal summon sticks because the deck is so normal summon reliant. I go ahead and activate Future Fusion and Rhoda in the same thing so I can search at the same time. I send 1 Red Med, 2 Wyverns, the third's already down, and double Totem. That leaves the best possible top decks of White Knight or Red Med in my deck and 2 Totem Dragons. So I have maximum number of resources. I have 5 Graveyard resources, which is absolutely huge. It's just massive. And then I do search for the DD Warrior Lady now. Why? Because I need to banish this Sirocco. If I just bring back Red Med end phase, any Blackwing monster helps his Sirocco get over that. And then I have to parry 2 Blackwing monsters, 3 Blackwing monsters, etc., etc. If I summon the DD Warrior Lady, attack the Sirocco, let's say he has another Sirocco in his hand, he's locked, he can't play. Or if he has another Blackwing, he summons it, he tries to attack, we can call back Red Eyes, and then next turn we can set up for maybe a really big push. So yeah, I just need to keep the pressure off my back, and knowing when to summon the Red Eyes is a big part of this deck. Oftentimes people will Wyvern as soon as they Future Fusion always, and that's not always necessarily the case. You don't always necessarily want to do that. I set the Call of the Haunted, and I pass the turn. So my game plan's kind of getting initiated. He has 4 cards, and I have 3 cards. I draw up to 4, but I also have 5 graveyard resources. So I'm working with functionally, I want to say 8 cards functionally, because the totems are kind of half a resource each. Anyway, he summons Kalut, and he attacks. I'm like, okay, that's an Icarus attack. So I'm hoping what he's going to do. So I'm going to end phase call to play around Royal Oppression, of course. I'm going to call the Red Med. And then this is a check for Royal Oppression as well, because if I call Red Med and he lets me go to main phase, he for sure has Royal Oppression. But if I call Red Med and he doesn't have Royal Oppression, he will Icarus attack me before I go into my main phase. So it gives me information by calling end phase as well. It also plays around Bottomless by doing this, and Torrential as well if he plays that. Another thing is if I draw Book of Moon and he messes up, he Icarus targets the call and the Future Fusion, then I can book my Red Eyes in response, and I will save him because he will no longer be attached to the Call of the Haunted. This is something that players need to pay more attention to. If he does have Icarus, he should definitely target Red Eyes and Future Fusion. And it's kind of a 50-50 because some Dragon players, they main deck my Body as a Shield. I know Pro Storm does. So if I were to draw that, then he gets punished for targeting the Red Eyes. But if I'm to draw Book of Moon, he gets punished for targeting the call. I draw for turn. I don't draw Book, but he does actually make the mistake targeting the call. And that gives me information for later in the match if that's going to come up, the way he plays into Call of the Haunted. So he targets call, he destroys both, but now it's kind of exactly what I wanted. We have no cards each, but I have 5 graveyard resources, and I can just bring back my Red Eyes and just grind game him to death. I'm at a high enough life total to where I'm probably not going to lose because I have this life buffer in the Red Eyes, unless he finds specifically Brain Control. He didn't, he passes back the turn, I draw Deep Prison, and now I'm feeling really safe. I can Red Eyes bring out Drago, and now he can't even use Blizzard or Dark Arms. I attack for a bajillion million damage. He has 3 Darks, but, he can't special Dark Armed because I have the Drago, and he can't Blizzard anything because I have the Drago. And if he has Sirocco, he has to summon it and attack, and we have Deep Prison. I pass the turn. He has his own Heavy Storm, which is pretty good. He also does have the Sirocco, so I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of annoying. He can attack over the Drago, but we draw Mirror Force, and again, we have that Grave resource. I can just summon the Exploder and clear the Sirocco. This is another instance of you want to make sure Sirocco's off the field before you start end phase bringing back. Oh, I don't actually have the Red Eyes in the graveyard, but I can Wyvern bring back Wyvern as an extra beater to play on low resources. So, but you definitely do want to make sure the Sirocco is clear before you start doing stuff. So I clear the Sirocco, and then I set the Mirror Force and pass. He draws, he sets back row. I draw Mass Dragon. I'm like, oh, that's really good because Mass Dragon, it can't be cleared by battle. So in these low resource situations, he's really good. I attack for 14. He takes 14. He draws. He summons Shura. He attacks. I just Mirror Force this. I don't want to let him get Vayu because that's his grave resource, basically. I don't want him to get that online. I find Red Eyes. I'm like, I could go for this, but I want to play around Bottomless and that kind of stuff. Torrential Mirror Force. Not much of his stuff has been used yet. He still has 2 Icarus. He still has Bottomless. He still has Mirror Force and Torrential if he plays it. So I figured I'm just going to start hitting for 14, keep it safe. If he ever clears the Mass Dragon, then I can Totem Red Med and Brain for game. So that's the game plan. I draw for turn. It's Deep Prison. I'm like, oh, that's really good. I'll just attack for 14. Now he's dropped to 1700. I'll set the Deep Prison, pass the turn. He draws, passes the turn. I draw, attack for 1400. He Book of Moon's my guy, so now he's bleeding even more cards. And again, we still have those grave resources. We still have the totems. We still have ways to come back into this game, even if he manages to beat the pressure. He draws for a turn. He sets his monster, sets a back row, and I'm like, that's got to be an Icarus. So I'm just going to flip mask, attack. He's forced to Icarus, mask, and my set card. I maybe shouldn't have set that bottom list, but I wanted to play around potential Whirlwind plus Shura being a problematic draw. I find Book of Moon, and I just pass. I don't really need to set the Book of Moon and play into his Icarus attack. If he attacks me with something, I can just deprison it, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Deprison it. This turn I can go Totem Dragon, bring it out, banish to Special Red Eyes. If he has Oppression, he'll pay it now, and then I can normal mass and attack for game. And if he doesn't have Oppression, this beats him through everything. I beat him, and then we go to sideboarding, and then he left, which is very sad. Don't worry, I've got more replays for you guys. But I wanted to show you that game because it showcased the Blackwing versus Dragon matchup in game 1. Usually your game plan is to survive and trade resources as much as possible, as early as possible, take as little damage as possible, and then outgrind them with Wyverns and Red Meds. Because once you get a Red Med in play in a low resource situation, that's when you beat them. That's how you do it. They can't really deal with that very effectively if they're just like top decking or like whatever. Because Red Med Drago or just Drago on its own is good at shutting off a fair part of their deck. And most games, because it is an aggro mirror, and there's no like insane like resource, they have their powerful grave resource, which is Vayu and Blizzard, and then we have our powerful grave resource, which is Wyvern and Totem. But you just need to get to your Wyverns early enough, and I don't know where I was going with this, but I just wanted to showcase that game. How I would side in this matchup, by the way, is I would side in the 2 Trap Holes, the Compulsory, and the 2 Dust Tornadoes, and I would side out probably Call of the Haunted, double Gold Sark, Brain Control, and I'm not sure, Dust Shoot. Yeah, it's Dust Shoot, yeah. So it's Dust Shoot, Call, Brain Control, double Gold Sark. So that's 5 cards that don't remove monsters. They don't play to our game plan. And then I side in double Dust to remove back row. It's chainable back row, which is really nice. Helps clear Whirlwind. And double Trap Hole, which helps stop the normal summon, which is how they beat you. And Compulsory, which is an additional normal summon stop. And it can also deal with Vayu Synchros, if that's what they're going for. So I think that's the best way to side in this matchup. Just keep it simple. Your main deck is already pretty good versus them. You just need to keep their monster out of play. And if their monster is kept out of play, then their Whirlwinds do nothing and their Icarus does nothing. And then you can like Starlight Road when they go for a big Icarus or whatever and usually win from there. Just make sure and hold your Dust Tornadoes and your Space Typhoons for when they matter. Overall, I think Blackwings is one of the more straightforward matchups. I think it's one of the easier matchups with the deck. Yes, they can have the broken hands where they go first and they have double Whirlwind Dust Shoot, but that happens about as frequently as you have like, you know, DD Warrior Ladies into Future Fusion into GG. So that's the game plan and that's how you play it. All right, next match is up against Huntmaster. I think I lose rock, paper, scissors. Yep. So going second with this deck, it kind of sucks, but you have a lot of ways to kind of like break through things. We open up with Future Fusion, which happens some percentage of the time. I think you're like 40% to open Future Fusion or Gold Sark because it's like 3 of in the deck. If you add Upstart Goblins, it only increases opening Future Fusion by like 1.7%, I think. So it's not really worth adding them. I know Fitz did play them, but yeah, I'm not a fan. I draw my second Starlight, but that's good. That just means I'm going to be safe through just about everything I go for. So I just set both and set my monster. There's no reason to actually play the Future Fusion into back row just yet. I can force that back row by summoning my monsters, and then once that back row is forced, I can go for Future Fusion. In most matchups, I like to grind through the game first and then Future Fusion to like really overwhelm them once I've established the position a little bit better. It's not always best to just slam Future Fusion into back row unless you absolutely have to given your hand. I pass the turn. He specials Cyber Dragon. He normal summons Plague. And he goes for a very aggressive Black Rose Dragon trying to get the 3 for 3, but we have Starlight Road. So yeah, we just rode that and we get our first Stardust. He sets a back row, passes the turn. I draw Brain Control and I'm like, well, now that I have Stardust and Road, I feel pretty safe to just really commit. I'm going to activate Future Fusion. Even if he has Typhoon, I can negate it with Stardust. So I activate the Future Fusion. I send Wyvern, 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 Drago, and Red Med. The reason I send this is because I want to flip my Masked and then banish it to Special Red Eyes and then bring out the Drago. But then I was thinking about it. I'm like, I don't really want to do that because then I won't have a Drago or then I won't have a dragon in my hand to reveal to this Drago. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to banish the Wyvern and bring out the Red Med and then reveal the Drago. But the reason I don't send Totem here is because I have 2 monsters in play, and I don't expect these monsters to be going anywhere. Both these monsters are very sticky, and I have another road to protect them, so Totem's just going to be dead the rest of the game. I just want Drago access, and it looks like his deck is going to need to have a Drago versus it because he has Plague in the grave. So I go end phase, bring out Red Eyes. There's no reason to swing my Stardust into a D Prison when I'd rather have it protect my Red Eyes from Bottomless. Here he goes for Torrential, and I activate the second road. And this is why Road is so good in this deck. It just lets you play like a belligerent little asshole into everything. You can just play your cards, not really think. You're pretty much always safe. And the second one of these resolves, you win. And if the second one ever resolves, it's just like, it's insane. He draws for turn. He has Brain Control. He can crash the Stardusts. But like, look how much he has to play just to clear like the first like wave. And then we still have 2 more waves at the very least. And we still have Brain Control. We still have Warrior Lady. We still have so many ways to deal with this deck. Like, look how many cards we're up. We're up 6-2. And then on top of that, we've got 2 Wyverns in the grave. Future Fusion is a silly card. Starlight Road is also a silly card. Those are the 2 ways this deck gains card advantage outside of battle. And they all resolved in this game. And as you can see, I'm up my absolute life here. End phase, I'm just going to bring back that Red Eyes. Keep grinding with that 1 Red Eyes. I draw a call. I bring out my 5-headed dragon. I activate the Red Eyes. I attack with Drago. He pops a Future Fusion, which keeps him alive for a turn, but there's no draw in the history of this game that gets you out of anything here. He prisons the Red Med, but I have another one, so it doesn't really matter. He summons Cyber Valley, he goes for dupe, and I'm like, you can't do that because I have Drago. He passes the turn, and I have Brain Control, which is going to end things because I can Brain and then double tribute for Red Med and attack for game. So, yeah, that was game 1 versus Machina Lightsworn. I think the Machina Lightsworn deck is a little bit slower than the average like Ancient Gear Machina deck. I think the Ancient Gear Machina deck is a much worse matchup than the Lightsworn Machina deck. However, the Lightsworn Machina deck is still capable of being annoying. For sideboarding, what I did is I brought in, I believe, the Cyber Dragons, the Noblemans, because they play Hamster and Raikou. Not sure how much of that he'll keep in, but most people don't side out Hamsters, which is silly when they're going first, even though we do have Drago. So I just like to keep in the Noblemans. Or bring in the Noblemans, and then I do believe I brought in the Royal Oppression as well as some number of the Dust Tornadoes to help make sure our monsters can stick in the matchup. So yeah, also it's a chainable into Raikou, which is nice. He sets 3, 4, and passes. We draw Future Fusion, but again, there's no reason to go for it. Let's just set 2 and pass. You can open up with Future Fusion and not use it, and you're usually going to win. We draw Knock, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll just pass. We draw again, we draw Dust Shoot. I'm like, oh, that's really good. I'm going to set the Knock first in case he wants to go for M-Phase Typhoon and hit the first one we set. So I set it to put a 50-50 on the Dust Shoot so I could resolve it. We go ahead and Dust Shoot, and we reveal his hand has Zombie World and Brain Control as well as DD Crow. I make a little bit of an error here. I take the Machina Fortress instead of the DD Crow. What I should have done was actually taken the DD Crow because now I can't go for the game plan that I want to go for, which is Future Fusion, send 3 Wyvern, 1 Red Eyes, 1 Totem. That's the maximum resources you can send off Future Fusion. But as it stands, I can't go for that anymore. Plus, Cyber Dragon would have cleared the Machina Fortress if it ever got in play because we do have Dust Tornado for the Zombie World. So, yeah, that's pretty big error on my part, I believe. We draw Rhoda, and I'm like, that's pretty good because I can summon a monster and start forcing his back row. DD Warrior Lady's nice because it'll basically like just attack into either Deep Prison or Bottomless, and if it gets banished, like that's almost favorable because I'd rather it not be in my graveyard. Pass the turn, he draws a Fortress again, very unlucky. We pick up Heavy Storm, I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. We can go for that at some point and force it through with Royal Oppression, but going for it right now is not that good. I'd rather just keep my back row, so yeah, I just pass. He draws, he passes, we draw Bottomless, I'm like, alright, I'll commit that and pass. He finds Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, which we do have to banish because that does shut off Wyvern. This card's like pretty decent against dragons. So he summons that, and we Bottomless it. He passes back, we draw Deep Prison. I'm like, that's pretty good, I'll just set it, pass. He draws Machina Force. He sets the Plague, passes the turn. I go ahead and normal Mast, and then I knock his monster. You want normal first to play around Torrential. So we knock his guy, attack for 14. There are some instances where it's better to just knock, though. Like against zombies, it's sometimes better to just knock, because if they have Goblin Zombie, they're going to Torrential you on the normal summon, then your knock just is dead for the rest of the game, which is really annoying. He draws Duplication. He has no targets, so yeah, he just sets it and passes. Now it's time to go for Heavy Storm with Oppression backup. He goes Solemn, and I'm like, oh shit. Now how am I going to play through these back row? That's going to be kind of hard. I go for Dust Tornado Blind, trying to hit the newest set to see what it was. He hasn't Typhooned me yet, so I was like, I don't know. I attack for 14 because he's super low, and I'm like, maybe Mask can just carry me. I pass the turn. He goes Brain Control plus Cyber Valley, and I'm like, ah, shit, I have nothing for this. So he takes my Mask, and he's able to banish both and draw 2 new cards. So I actually kind of fell apart here. I got maybe a little bit too conservative with when I played the Future Fusion, but I'm still feeling okay. I still have Oppression for Fortress. I still have Deep Prison for his normal, so like, it's okay. I just Oppression this, and that's fine. I draw Drago, and I'm like, oh, that's lethal, so let's just summon it. He goes Bottomless, and I'm like, alright, that's fine. He summons Valley. I'm chilling. He activates the Zombie World to play around Cyber Dragon. I go ahead and activate Future Fusion. I'm trying to bait him into activating the Royal Oppression, because if he does, then I can go, like, special summon Cyber Dragon, etc. But, yeah, here we are. He lets Future Fusion resolve, which sends double Wyvern. We drew the third, unfortunately. And I do send Exploder Dragon, because I don't really want to draw it. I special summon the Cyber Dragon. He also doesn't negate this. I'm like, oh, shit. All right, I'll attack. He's going to draw a card. I kind of wanted to put him outside of Brain Control and Oppression range, basically, but he didn't bite. He draws, he sets Raikou, sets Prison, passes. We draw Drago, and I'm like, oh, I'll just knock his Raikou. I don't play those. He shuffles his away. We attack. He has Prison. We go ahead and pass. He draws, sets a monster. I draw. I bring out Five-Headed Dragon because of the thing. I don't want to play into Torrential because he hasn't used it yet, so I just attack with the 5-head. I take away the Peacekeeper. He grabs Gear Frame. Pass the turn after setting a monster. He sets his monster, passes the turn. I flip Drago. He's forced to Torrential. And the reason we set Drago last turn is so we can make 2 plays this turn to play through Torrential. He goes ahead and Torrentials and then draws a card, and then I normal Wyvern, and that's the game. So, yeah, that's why you set Drago there and not commit it, because you want to be able to make 2 plays in 1 turn and overload your opponent's back row. So, yeah, I just wanted to show how this deck dealt with Zombie World and dealt with Machinas. I think the matchup, we both bricked pretty fucking hard, I'm going to be honest, but I think the matchup is fairly straightforward thanks to the DD Warrior Ladies and the Cyber Dragons literally just carrying the whole matchup. Like, they can have a pretty decent start, and you can have 1 DD Warrior Lady or 1 D Prison and just be absolutely fine. Knock to help deal with the Raikous is kind of important, but outside of that, it's a pretty easy matchup, I think. Next match is up against Ronnie Tsunami. First, I do win the Rock, Paper, Scissors. Wow, I thought I was going to lose all of them. He's playing 60 cards, which is fucking bullshit, but I wanted to showcase this because he's actually playing a variation of a deck that won at the EU WCQ, and he also opens broken as hell, so just ignore that it's 60 cards. I wouldn't normally include this, but you'll see the opening, and I just want to show it to you guys. So I summon Wyvern, I set Book, I pass the turn. I'll just show you his fucking hand. Yeah, he opens up with Charge of the Light Brigade, Search for Raikou, which is pretty good, Allure of Darkness, draw 2, Banish the Dark Creator, okay, 2 limited spells, Heavy Storm, 3rd limited spell, Trade In, Pitch Sky Scourge. So he has a really good start here. Like, this is a genuinely really good start. He summons the Phantom, he goes for the Norlaris pop, but unfortunately for him, he didn't draw his synergy, so his graveyard is dead, but we actually have the grave resource. We actually have Wyvern plus Red Eyes. And this is why I really like this build, because even against bullshit that's like ripping apart your hand, you still have grave resources in Wyvern and Totem Dragon, so you can still come back when you're top decking, which is really nice. We top deck Warrior Lady, I'm like, that's a good comeback card. I'm going to just go for the Wyvern Red Eyes now, because if I can bring back that Drago, oh man, it's going to be nice. So I just pass the turn, and he only has 1 draw to deal with this Red Eyes, and he doesn't get there. So we draw for turn, we find a Dragon, which is perfect, because that's a Dragon to reveal to the Drago. Bring out the Drago, attack over the Necro, attack directly for 19, and pass the turn. Revealing the Exploder. I've been hating this card, by the way. I side it out a lot, Exploder Dragon, but it's just important to have a count to banish for Red Eyes, I think. And then he top decks Future Fusion. I'm like, well, shit. And I tell him he can't because I just assume he's playing dragons, given what we've seen, the Dark Creator, etc. Turns out he's playing fucking Absolute Zero and Diva, too. So I was like, jeez, this guy drew broken, and I'm actually not going to be able to end the game in the next turn because he has Necroguard now. So if he can survive 1 more turn after this, he'll get Absolute Zero and completely stabilize, which is not cool. I find Starlight Road, but still that Absolute Zero threat exists. I'm going to activate Red Eyes, normal the DD Warrior Lady, attack with DD Warrior Lady in case it's like a set Honest or something. Turns out it's Lila. I'm just going to run it over. We'll attack with all of our monsters, and he's going to negate the last attack with the red eyes with Necrogarna. I'm going to set the road, reveal Exploder, and pass. And he doesn't top deck away to buy an extra turn, thankfully. Oh, shoot, I don't want to show this hand. Okay. Yeah, so that game went really well. We had Wyvern Redmed in our opening hand when we got Norlaris, which was really good. So this deck actually has a counter to the Norlaris strategies, which are picking up a little bit in popularity ever since they won the Giant Black Rose at the EUWCQ. I'll cover that list eventually. Maybe when I'm back from Nats, I'll cover it. It's an interesting list, the one that won, but it's very soft to DD Crow. So if you're scared of like the Norlaris decks, just pop 3 Crow in your sideboard and Prage, basically. But with 3 Crow, you're like 40-50% to open it, and you should be good. His deck looked very weak to Crow, so yeah. I go second again. He opens up with Future Fusion, so having Future Fusion in roughly the opening hand, 2 games in a row and 60 cards, so pretty broken. He sends Mal, he sends Snowman. He's able to go Monk, Pitch, Armageddon Knight. Thankfully, he's not Norlarising us. This would have been a much worse hand to get Norlaris. I do want to make sure this Gold Sark resolves before I get Norlaris. It's the scary part here. He activates the Plague, he activates the Mally, and he's able to make Future Fusion Stardust, which is pretty devastating for our hand to deal with. We currently have no outs to the Stardust Dragon at all, outside of Book and then Solemn on the flip summon. So what we're probably going to be forced to do is summon Drago, attack over the Monk to just keep that guy from getting more value for the opponent, and then Book the Stardust, Typhoon the Future Fusion, and then Solemn the Stardust when it's flipped, and then lose our Drago in the end phase if we don't draw a dragon, which is really unlucky, and we're going to be left with 0 cards, and he's going to have actual resources to sort of face off against us, plus he's going to have a potentially live Miracle Fusion if he plays those. So it's pretty dangerous opening. On top of that, he has a back row as well, which is really scary. That being said, we drew a really, really good card in DD Warrior Lady, and this is particularly why I want to have the 4th copy in the Rhoda in the main over something like Smashing Ground, is because DD Warrior Lady is just that girl. She is just the best card. She's just the best card in this deck by far, by a really, really large margin. She helps you deal with a lot of really annoying cards: Colossal Fighter, Spirit Reaper, Stardust Dragon, Dupe Frog, anything that's just like really obnoxious. Christia, it helps you just clear that, get it out of the way. You want as many copies of this card as possible. Potentially, I've even thought about siding DD Assailants and DD Warriors as well in different metagames because of how good this card is in this deck in particular. It plays exactly to the game plan. Go down to 0 cards, stick a Drago, go from there. That's kind of the idea. We go ahead and Gold Sark for Future Fusion. I know that's the card I'm going to want in 2 turns, especially if I get Norlaris next turn. I'm going to want to make sure that I have some resource coming off of the Gold Sark. Gold Sark also very good against Norlaris. Summon DD Warrior Lady, I run over the Armageddon Knight. I know he's not getting 0 next turn, so I just want to clear the Armageddon Knight now. And then if he goes Stardust attack the DD Warrior Lady, we can banish them both, and we actually got a +1 off of our DD Warrior Lady, which is fantastic. That's going to run over the Armageddon Knight. It's going to be really nice. I'm going to set 2, 3, and pass. He sets a monster and passes. I draw a dragon to reveal to my Drago, which is kind of perfect. I'm going to summon the Drago, attack the Monk. So we defeat the Monk, and we banish the Stardust, and then we're able to Typhoon the Future Fusion, and next turn we're getting Future Fusion of our own off of the Gold Sark, and so we've kind of taken back control of this game thanks to a very lucky DD Warrior Lady top deck. The card is it's just so insane. It helps you get out of like really, really ugly situations. Even if like your opponent goes JD and like blows up your board, or just some really difficult, annoying cards to beat, like Shura Whirlwind with Collude in hand. DD Warrior Lady is just like your savior. Pass the turn, flip Raikou, target the Drago, and I'm like, ooh, that's pretty good. Now they can special summon some lighter darks. I have Solemn. Do I Solemn this? I'm going to Solemn this because I think Drago is good enough versus his deck and what he's trying to do that, by the way, he targeted the Drago like immediately, by the way. He didn't like give me a chance to Solemn. That's why later we'll check the log. We'll check the log so I can show you. Flip, separate, go, pointed at Quacky Drago 2 seconds afterwards. So yeah, he didn't really give me a chance to Solemn. He just flipped and then pointed at it, and I'm like, oh no, wait, I want to Solemn this. And so we do. That's why you gotta into multiple back row. You gotta ask like if they're Solemn when you're flipping Raikou before you declare the target, because you don't want to give them too much information. Because he gave away that he wanted to target the Drago, It implies to me that the Drago is probably cucking him to some degree. So yeah, we draw our Future Fusion. A little bit awkward. We can't play it with Drago in play. And now we are a little bit vulnerable to something like a Phantom of Chaos on a Norlaris if he's able to piece that together, because we will be losing our resource. I'm just going to Gold Sark again and try to put something that's going to be as good as possible under a Norlaris activation. So I search for Red Med because I think that that's like the best thing, the next best thing to a Future Fusion if we get Norlaris. I reveal the Mass Dragon in the end phase and pass. He passes again. I draw Book and I'm like, okay, now I'm safe into the guy. What's his name? I already had a Book, but now I'm safe into the guy plus like Typhoon. Phantom of Chaos, basically. I attack for 19. I set the Book. I reveal Mask. I pass the turn. He draws. We get Red Med. I draw a Nobleman, and now I'm safe into Raikou, or if he sets another monster. I'm going to summon the Mask because now I have another Dragon for my Drago. Attack with both. He's going to take a Bajillion, end phase reveal the Red Eyes, and pass the turn, and he draws a card, and it's just dead. And as you can see, he has 3 Darks. He has Heavy Storm, but he can't get over the Drago plus the back row. And that's why this card is so devastating versus Dark decks, versus Lightsworn decks, versus Vayu Turbo decks, Blackwing decks, Zombie decks, literally everything. This card just beats them. And if you don't draw this card, the deck feels a lot less powerful. I'll say that much. It's not a bad deck without Drago, but with Drago, it's like a god tier deck because this guy just like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a Christia that you can normal summon. It's a one-sided Christia that you can normal summon. And his stat line is insane. Like, he just gets over everything, except Sirocco, of course. It's just like one of the best cards in the format, in my opinion. And the last replay I want to show you guys is against YKK3416, ChatGPT-ass username. We are going second yet again. And this is a tough one because this match, as you can see, our opening hand is not super hot. We drew both our totems, a Wyvern and a Gold Sark, as well as the White Knight Dragon. So we drew a lot of the deck's bricks, but they're still fine. They're still fine, you know? Opponent just sets a monster, passes. I drew double Gold Sark, so a pretty slow hand. Another double Gold Sark hand. I really dislike Gold Sark, but I think it's a necessary evil. We go ahead and summon Totem and attack. And we get value out of one of our totems, which is nice. Raikou's going to pop that, mill 3, and he reveals he is playing Christia-sworn. Either that or he's playing Fairies. But I'm pretty sure it's Christia-sworn. So I go ahead and Gold Sark twice. I search for Future Fusion and for Book of Moon. The reason I search for Book of Moon is because it can flip down a Christia. That's why. That's the only reason. And we're pretty close to getting Christia because he's 2 Fairies off. Now a Herald of Orange puts him immediately at Christia too, and we are just down a million cards. It's not great. He goes ahead and charges, mills Plague, which is pretty good, confirming the situation that we are looking at. He summons Lila, he attacks for 17. That's pretty tough for us. He mills 3. He's still off of... Oh, no, he's not. He has exactly 4 for Christia, which is fucking amazing. We draw Rhoda, and I'm like, okay, Rhoda for DD Warrior Lady kind of gets us out of here, but I'm going to go for White Knight and just pray he doesn't have the second Honest. Because if he has the second Honest, like, we probably are going to lose, but I'm going to force it. And the reason I wanted to force the second Honest is because if he has Christia, I want him to be at 5 Fairies. So even though this means we're going to lose our White Knight and our Grave Totem and everything else, it's just best to force the Honest now to put him to 5 Fairies so we don't get Christia'd. I attack, and he does have the second Honest. So I'm like, okay, well, at least I'm not getting Christia'd next turn, right? Wrong. He's actually adapted Monster Reincarnation over Beckoning Light, so he's able to Christia us, which fucking sucks. And I'm just going to concede because we're dead that turn. So that was a tough opening from us. We had Totem Dragon. He had the second Honest. We had double Gold Sark. It was very slow. It was just like a really awkward opening. Going second. Going first, maybe we could have made something work, but going second, it was just a little bit too tough. This hand is pretty good. I've boarded in the Nox, so in this matchup, what I do is I board in the 2 Noblemen. I board in the some number of Trap Holes, Compulsory, Prohibition, some number of each of these cards. Trap Hole basically because it's better than Deep Prison versus Lila. And it's better than Mirror Force versus not Christia, but versus like the normal summon guys. Compulsory because it can answer anything. Nobleman because it hits their starters. And Prohibition because I can just name the bomb that they add back off of whatever. Or that I know they have. This is the wrong thing. Where am I going with this? This is the wrong matchup too. Okay, hold up. Hold, everybody, hold. Alright, we're back. Okay. I draw this Exploder and I'm like, God, I hate this card. I probably should have sided this guy out. He's just not very good. We draw Nobleman again. I'm like, okay, that's good. That means at least we will be able to nobleman 2 starters, right? He goes recharge, pitch Raikou, and I'm like, damn, I wish he would have set that. God damn it. He sets another monster, though, so I'm like, okay, maybe we have a chance. Still, though, opening hand... Oh, man. I think I played this wrong. I think I played this game wrong. And here's how I think I played it wrong. I played too scared of Herald of Orange Light, I think is the issue. What I needed to actually do was go Nobleman, Masked, Banish, Special Red Eyes bring out Wyvern, attack with both, and then say you have 1 turn. But I played too scared of Herald of Orange, because if he has Herald of Orange into Christia, we actually do just lose. And we can technically kind of play around that, but I just played too scared. What I should have done was summon Masked and Banish for Red Eyes. We'll show both hands. You can see he did have Herald of Orange. So even though I did play around it, and I knew that that was potentially something he could have, I don't know. I just think I think this is the right play. We attack for 1800. He doesn't shuffle away any hamsters, so I know he has more in his hand, and I'm like, fuck, that's annoying. So, yeah, we pass the turn. He draws again. It's Honest, which is really good. He sets the hamster. We draw. We're able to summon Exploder, Banish for Red Eyes. Red Eyes activate, but now he has that Herald. And we are getting more damage, theoretically, by making this play into Herald of Orange Light, but we're also risking losing to just Christia straight up. I knock his monster. If he has Christia, we're forced to Torrential and hope to top deck Drago. We attack for 1800. He does not have Gorge or whatever. He draws Monster Reincarnation. He sets Raikou. He passes. We draw Deep Prison. I'm like, okay, that can at least out a Christia. He goes Raikou, pop the Wyvern, keep the pressure off. Another turn where I could have banished this guy, special Red Med, and then special out Mask to at least get some damage in, but it's all marginal. He mills 3. He does mill a Christia with no other fairies, so you can kind of see what's going to happen here. He goes draw for turn, it's Torrential. Lila, I'm forced to Torrential that. Monster Reincarnation, pitch his Torrential, add back Christia. Special Christia, add back Herald of Orange, and I'm like, dude. We take 28, he passes. We do draw the Drago, so I'm like, okay. We have a chance back into this game. Our chance back into this game is we summon the Drago, we set the Deep Prison, he gets a little bit aggressive, he attacks the Drago, and we Deep Prison it, and then we stabilize that way. So I summon the Drago, I set the Deep Prison, and I reveal the Mask, and I pass. He goes ahead and passes back, so he doesn't play into the Deep Prison correctly and smartly, and I'm like, okay, we need to find a way to get rid of this Christia, and then we need to also find a way to get the Red Med and the Drago in play in the same turn so that I can attack for 4700. So I'm going to set a monster here. I set the Totem. So my plan is to play around Herald, set the Totem, right? If he attacks, we can Deep Prison. We can tribute the Totem for Red Med. Just tribute normal summon. Don't activate the effect to play around Herald, and then just attack with both for game. That's the game plan. Pass the turn. He draws Gores. He gets a little antsy here. He does attack. We do Deep Prison. He sets a monster, passes. We draw another Mask. I'm going to tribute summon Red Eyes. And again, I'm going to play around that Herald by not activating the Red Eyes. I know he has the Herald in hand, so we never really need to proc it. He says I can't, and I'm like, no, I'm normal summoning it. I'm not special summoning it. So this is totally legal play. Red Eyes attacks the set monster, and Drago attacks directly for 1900. I reveal Masked. I pass the turn. He draws Raikou, which is really fucking good here. We draw Gold Sark, which is not a great top deck. That's another issue with this card is like I mentioned in the last 3 matches, you do want to get to this top decking position. You do want to get into this like low resource situation where you have the Drago and stuff. So you're like, okay, I do want to get into this situation with you. Yeah. So what I should have done here was, nah, there's really nothing you can do differently here. I just normal the Masked and then attack with the Drago. He's forced to pop the Red Med because of this, which is, I think, the best play. I attack with the Drago, Raikou pops, he mills 3, and then Masked attacks for 14. Pass the turn back after Gold Sarking for Brain Control, because he's low now, and so Brain Control will win the game when I get it. He draws another Herald, and we do win. So, like, you saw how quickly that game changed when I drew Drago versus when I didn't draw Drago. And then you also saw how important it is to play around Herald of Orange Light versus this specific matchup. If I had not played around Herald of Orange Light at any moment, it would have been a throw, I think. And even though the first part of that game, I played it really passively, playing around Herald of Orange Light ended up rewarding me. You can't always afford to do that, unfortunately. That's why I know some builds are adapting my body as a shield so that they can just play like a belligerent asshole into Herald of Orange Light, and then just my body is shielded when it fucking activates. But yeah, the matchup itself, it really isn't so much about those cards. It's more so about, can you find Drago? And that's it. And if you find him, you win. Like that's literally it. The Lightsworn matchup and the Christia-sworn matchups, it's pretty much just Drago, and that's it. And I know someone's gonna ask this in the comments. Can you Herald of Orange Light the reveal on Drago? No, you can't, because this isn't an effect. It's a maintenance cost that must be paid. So this is not an effect. It cannot be negated by skill drain. It still must be paid under skill drain, that kind of thing, and it cannot be negated by Herald of Orange Light. It doesn't start a chain. So for those of you curious, if they could out Drago by using Herald of Orange Light, you cannot. We go ahead and go into game 3. I am going second, and we do have an okay hand, but it's not very good going second because they get a chance to do all their recharge shenanigans under my judgment, which is annoying. They set a monster and pass. Unfortunately, we have to go Wyvern attack, and it's not Raikou. It's a 50-50 hamster, and they actually left the hamsters in versus the Drago deck. So they are very lucky we didn't open a Drago this game. So in game 1 and game 3, we just didn't see Drago at all. And, oh, I'm spoilering a little bit. He grabs Raikou. I didn't see it in my opening hand, I should say. He grabs Raikou. He goes Jane attack. We are going to take 300. Main phase 2, he's going to set, or charge the Light Brigade. Mill, grab Lumina. Did we find Drago in this game? I don't remember. Oh, we find Bottomless. That's not bad. Oh, that's not bad. What do? I just go Masked. Oh, this is what I do. I go Masked, crash into Jane. I want to kill the Raikou for value. And then I go Totem, attack the Raikou. And Raikou pops the Totem. Mills 3. It also thins my deck 1 card. And it sets me up a little bit. He's pretty close to Christia. He could tribute summon it even. But I have Bottomless, so I'm just going to set 3 and pass. So, yeah, we're kind of in a tough spot. Jane attacks for 18. We can't really stop that. He sets another Raikou, and I'm like, fuck, dude. He mills 2, and he mills his 4th fairy, so I'm like, okay, this is going to be tough. We can now bring back Totem. We can banish for Red Med, activate, bring out Red Eyes Wyvern, and he doesn't herald me. So I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. We can at least clear both his monsters unless he has Honest. He doesn't have Honest, so we're able to crash the Wyvern for his monster for free. That being said, he does have 6 cards, and we really only have 2 back row to stop him from making plays. So as long as he can make 3 plays this turn, he'll come back into this game very easily. He goes for the first play, which is Lila. Lila target the middle set. And I didn't want to Solemn this Lila. I actually just wanted to Bottomless it if it targeted the Solemn or the Bottomless. And if it targeted the Typhoon, I actually just want to let it resolve and save my 2 interactive pieces. That way, I'm functionally trading the Mystical Space Typhoon with his normal summon. Functionally. He goes End-Phase Mill 3, mills a 5th Fairy, which is pretty nice for us. But that being said, they have a lot of ways to control the grave. Monster Reincarnation, Soul of Purity and Light, that type of stuff. We draw another Bottomless. I'm like, okay, maybe that can help. I'm going to activate Red Med. He doesn't have Herald this turn. We'll go Masked attack over. Red Eyes attack the set monster. And here he targets a back row. And I'm like, fuck, I needed that back row. He mills 3. And yeah, he mills the Celestia, the 2nd Soul, and the 3rd Christia. So I'm like, okay, chances of us getting Christia this game are pretty low unless he plays like fucking Avarice. But Judgment Dragon is still a threat. So I have to make a pretty serious decision here at the end of my turn. And that is, do I set the 2nd Bottomless or not? If I set the 2nd Bottomless, I play around the 3rd Lila or Monster Reincarnation on Lila into JD. But if I don't set the 2nd Bottomless, then, and he goes JD priority, then I save the Bottomless for that. Like if he leads on JD, then I can chain Bottomless and I have my 2nd Bottomless for the next JD. I decided to set it because the chances of him having Monster Reincarnation or the 3rd Lila is higher than the chances of him not, especially with only 12 cards left in deck. He goes ahead and activates Recharge, draws 2, mills 2. He goes ahead and activates another Recharge, draws 2, mills 2. And he mills his 3rd Lila, so I'm like, fuck, I made the wrong read. He goes for Heavy Storm, and that just sucks. It's pretty crushing, but he has a pretty crazy turn. He goes Monster Reincarnation, add back Soul, Special Summon JD, activate, pay 1,000, blow up the field, summon the Soul of Purity and Light, and normal summon Lumina for exact game. So as you can see, like I said, this matchup, it's more about can you find Drago than anything else. And a lot of it, like, there's a lot of micro decisions on, like, playing around Herald of Orange Light, or, like, you know, when to knock, when not to knock, that sort of thing. How to attack into a right go, how to play around Honest. There's a lot of micro decisions that can add up to small victories, but the majority of your wins in the Lightsworn and the Christia-sworn matchups are, can you find Drago and can you stick Drago? And as you could see in this game, versus YKK3416, game 1 and game 3, I lost my train of thought. I said, what were you thinking about for so long? Because he took 5 minutes to think about, after he had Heavy Storm, he took 5 minutes to think about JD Blow Up special normal attack for game. And I was like, bro, what were you thinking about? I don't play Gores. And I was like, imagine I have Fader and he decks out. That would have been kind of funny, but obviously we don't play that. We could play it. In theory, we could play Fader, but there's really no application in this deck because we don't play like Caius or anything. But yeah, no, this matchup is a lot about Drago, and a lot of matchups are a lot about Drago. So definitely play 3. I think if you're playing less than 3, it's kind of a mistake. It's even good in some of the matchups where you wouldn't think it's good, like versus Hero Beat, for example. If they go Diva into Gilman, they can't synchro into Android or Catastor. They have to main Gishilnadon to be able to synchro under Drago, which is pretty funny. Granted, if they have Gishilnadon, it does work, but yeah, that's the only matchup where Drago's like kind of a brick. And then versus Machina, depending on their builds, the Machina decks that aren't playing Raikos and Hamsters are currently playing Cyber Valleys, so it can stop that stuff. It can stop Cyber Dragon. It can stop... there's one other card it can stop that I'm not thinking of in the Machina decks. Battle Fader if they play it. Gore's Trag if they play it. There's one other card that's pretty important that Drago stops, but I'm forgetting it. But yeah, the deck is mostly a Drago deck. You just try to grind to low resources and stick one to this guy, and then that's how you win. Anyway, I hope you guys like this stuff. I can't wait to meet you guys at Nats. Definitely come up, say hi. And if you guys are fiending for Edison stuff, can't make it to Nats, or you want more than just Nats, definitely check out RBET Moreno Valley and RBET Orlando. Let me know what you guys think of the deck in the comments below, and yeah, see you guys next time. Peace.